What can we do if we want to make our hobbies more than just a moment of fun? I found an answer to my question through Neurographica, and if you are curious to know what insights I obtained, come with me. Welcome to the 4-Body Journey channel, Diary of a Journeyman, episode 3. In every episode of this series, I make a drawing of Neurographica in which I work on an area of my life I want to find some improvements, and I share with you the reflection that I produced by making this drawing. So I share with you all of the insights that I find, all of the ideas that I create, and all the practical steps that I will implement in my life in order to create the improvements in that area of my experience, so that you can have a very clear, precise, and practical idea of the benefits that Neurographica can bring to your life. Before we start, I just wanted to mention something very quickly. In the first episode of this series, I mentioned that I was going to, every video, I was going to introduce a little improvement, and that I would mention in that video what kind of improvement I would make. In the previous video, I added the auto screen for the YouTube video. However, I forgot to mention it in the video itself. I only found out while I was editing, so apologies for that. I mentioned it in a comment down below, but for this video, I just made a note. I really wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. So from this video on, I created a thumbnail. So let me know in the comments if you like them, if you have some improvements that you want to suggest. So let me know what you think about them. Moving on to this, to the drawing. This is a drawing that I made for this video. I'm gonna leave it enlarged on the screen as usual. And the question I asked myself was, okay, I have hobbies. I have activities that I do beyond work, beyond family, beyond, eating and sleeping and all the activities that are necessary for our survival. But I also have all of those hobbies. Is there a way for me to make them more than just a moment of fun, a moment of relief, a moment of relaxation? Can I do something more with them? Because I think I can. And as soon as I sat down in front of the blank sheet, I had a vision. In my mind, I saw myself as a little kid playing a video game. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved video games. I've always really enjoyed them. As an adult, I still do. However, for some people, video games as an adult, they are just, a waste of time. They're just useless. They just don't have any utility. However, I disagree. I think they can have a great utility if used in a certain way. And this prompted a question. Okay, is there a way for me to make not only video games but all of my hobbies? So, for example, it could be like working out. It could be any form of artistic activity or gardening or whatever. Can I make these activities even more efficient? So can I have these activities give me even more than just the relaxation and the fun that I usually get? Because I think it is possible to do so. For most people, hobbies are just that, hobbies. They're a moment of fun, they're a moment of relaxation. They are an activity that takes away some of the stress that we get from our everyday life. However, I think there is a second dimension to hobbies that is usually overlooked, which is the ability to teach us something, to allow us to either acquire a certain capability, a certain skill, or to strengthen it. Now, why do I think that hobbies can be such great activities to improve our skills? Because I think hobbies are a great model of our everyday life. Now, you might ask, what is a model? I've never heard of that, in this context. What do you mean with they are a model? Well, in the world of scientific research, models are basically, in layman's terms, they are an alternative universe that we create in our mind. It is purely theoretical, purely fictional, but in which we have the complete control over everything that happens. So we can take away anything or add anything to our leisure. So we can create a system that resembles a system that we want to study in our research, but we can make it much simpler so that we can reach some definitive conclusion. Sometimes the system that we want to study is too complicated for us to be able to understand it fully. But if we add these simplifications that we cannot add practically, then we are able to reach some conclusions on the properties of that system. Let me give you an example to understand more clearly what I mean. So let's just say that you are a fan of space travels, and you read an article on the internet where they mentioned that they've had a major breakthrough in space fuel technology. But in order to understand exactly why that is the case, you need to basically understand the properties of a gas inside a container. And let's just say that you have never studied that. You have no knowledge of that. Well, one thing you could do is you could read some articles, some books, some resources to acquire that knowledge. But let's just say that either you can't do that or you don't want to do that. You have to figure it out on your own. So the first thing you can do is you can create a model. What is the simplest model you can create in order to study that system? Well, it is just a container that does not deform, does not break, does not move, doesn't do anything. A cubic container that does nothing, is just there. Inside the container you have a ball, a perfect sphere that doesn't deform, that doesn't break, that doesn't do anything, that does not change in any shape or form. And you have that ball inside the container moving. No friction, no nothing. Just the ball keeps moving, and sometimes it hits the sides of the container and it keeps moving and it keeps moving. Now this of course is very different from the gas inside the container. Okay, it's a much more simplified system, and one that practically doesn't even have very much utility, but it already allows us to explain some concepts, some very important concepts. So the force with which the ball hits the sides of the container is directly related to the pressure inside the container, and the speed at which the ball travels inside the container is directly related to the temperature inside the container. So already from a model that is that simple, we have been able to explain concepts that seem so incredibly abstract, like pressure and temperature. Now, we have exhausted this system, we have explained it fully. How can we make it more complicated? Well, let's just add a second identical ball inside it. Okay, now we start seeing them moving around. Sometimes they hit the sides of the container, sometimes they hit each other, and then they just move again. Let's keep adding more and more and more balls. You're gonna have, 1,000 balls inside the container. They just keep moving around, they just keep hitting each other, and then they just keep hitting the side of the container. Well, what you're gonna figure out, what you're gonna see is that whenever the balls hit each other, it could happen that some will lose energy and some will gain energy. So not all of the balls will have the same energy. This is a very interesting phenomenon. And you might think, well, okay, yeah, why should I care about that? Well, that phenomenon is at the basis of some very practical observations. For example, let's just say that tonight you have rainfall. Tomorrow morning, in front of your house, there's a puddle. Tomorrow evening, the puddle has disappeared. So that all of that water has evaporated. But that water wasn't boiling, right? You didn't see the bubbles coming up. The water was at whatever temperature there was outside. So I don't know, 15, 20 degrees Celsius. And how can you explain that phenomenon? It wasn't boiling the water, how did it evaporate? Well, this phenomenon, the fact that inside the container some balls have more energies and some have less, is exactly why the water is evaporating. Now I suggest you, if you want curious, you can go and look up the exact explanation why. I'm just trying to give you a very simple idea of what is going on. But as you can see here, we have been able to provide an explanation to some very, very practically visible evidence through a much, much simpler system that we have created in our mind. That is a model. And I think hobbies can be very good models of our everyday life. So we can learn a skill, or we can make our expression of that skill better through hobbies. For example, we can learn how to play chess in order to strengthen our pattern recognition, or in order to strengthen our memory, or our ability to think logically. Or we could learn how to sculpt wood in order to teach us the ability to look at the finest details and handle them accordingly. Or we could have a garden in our backyard in order to teach us patience and perseverance. And someone might listen to this and they might think, wait a second, but it doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't it be much better to just take those ideas, apply them in our everyday life, in our work, to our family, so that we can learn the skill through that, and we can already reap the benefits much earlier? Because, for example, what could stop me from learning how to take care of the finest details in my job instead of learning how to sculpt wood? If it takes me 2 years to acquire that skill through wood, and I take the same time and I apply it in my job, I'm going to start seeing benefits much earlier because I'm already applying it to something that is related to my everyday life. So I'm going to reap the benefits much earlier than that. And that is a very good observation. And for some people, that's how it works. For some people, they need to apply it in their everyday life. That's how they operate. For me, that is not the case, because on the one hand, sure, if you start applying those skills and you start learning them in your everyday life, you're going to reap the benefits earlier. But what about the risks? What about the potential issues, the pitfalls, the mistakes? They can potentially be more costly, isn't it? Right? I think it makes perfect sense. For example, let's just say that you want to build more body strength and you're like, you know what? I don't feel like going to the gym. How about this? My uncle has a moving business. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to help him out for some of the moving. I'm going to make a bit of money and I'm going to build some strength. That sounds like a good idea, right? Well, let's just put it practically and to see, to put it in perspective. You go there. The first job, you need to move a very heavy table with the glass plane on top. Okay, you pick it up to try and move it. After 2 steps, it becomes too heavy for you. You cannot hold it. It falls to the side. It breaks. Now, not only you have not built the strength, but you were hoping to gain some money. Now you are lost on money. You have lost money because you have to repay the table. So there, as you can see, sure, if you get some benefits, you reap them much earlier. But if you make a mistake, you're gonna have to pay the consequences of it in your real life. What happens if instead you went to the gym? You lift the weight, you cannot lift the weight, it falls down. As long as you don't injure yourself, there is zero consequence. Your job remains exactly the same, nothing changes. Your family remains exactly the same, nothing changes. You have had the ability to build strength basic at zero cost. You have no negative consequences affecting your life. Again, as long as you don't injure yourself, of course. But I think this is a great strength of using hobbies, which could be like games or it could be like outdoor activities or whatever, to learn certain skills. Because you can learn these skills without any risk in case you make a mistake or in case you fail. There is no negative consequence on your life. And for me, that is very important, because I think whenever I learn something, I need to have the tranquility, I need to have the calmness of mind to say, okay, I can learn this skill without any issue. I do not need to think about, if something goes wrong, then this, and this might happen. I can just focus on learning, focus on trying my best. And I think this is a much more, this is an environment that is much more conducive to learning for me. Maybe for some of you that is not the case. Maybe for some of you, you need to learn with the added pressure on top. If that's how you work, by all means go for it. But I think there's some people who also prefer to learn at a slower pace and without the pressure of having to take into account potential negative consequences. So I think that is a very important premise for me to make. Now, with this being said, we can move on to the drawing. So I created this composition with a circle in the center, which represents me, and 7 triangles, which represent the features that I want these hobbies to have for me. So interestingly, 7 triangles, my favorite number is 7, my mother's favorite number is 7. So, interesting coincidences, but I have those 7 triangles. What do they represent for me? So starting from the top, this triangle here represents meaning. So I want all of my hobbies to have a meaning, have something that they are teaching me or that they are providing me. I don't want to do things just to do them. I want to be more deliberate with my hobbies as well as with, everything else in my life. This triangle here represents planning. So making sure that I don't go into the new phase of my life blind, but I figure out what I want to learn, how can I learn it, and how I can apply that to my everyday life to make sure that my hobbies don't only feel fun and relaxing and stimulating, but they are also teaching me what I want to learn. So planning, which is a very important phase. Then I have this triangle here, which represents relax. So the ability of the hobbies to still, relax me, to take away more stress than what they give me. Ideally, not to give me any stress because, we acquire stress to our everyday life. We would like our hobbies to take some of it away. So I would like for that to happen. Then this small triangle here, which I wasn't sure what it meant at the beginning, but after a little thought, I realized that it represented the sharing some content related to my hobbies. So this could mean, videos or streams or whatever, where I can either share my experience in working on these hobbies or in sharing the knowledge that I have acquired. And I think this kind of content can be very useful because even in activities where normally it would not be possible to interact with other people, for example, if I work out by myself at my house, I'm not going to talk with other people. If you go out to a gym, you're going to meet other people. If you work out in your home, you're not going to be able to. Or if you play, I don't know, a single player game, you're not going to interact with other people because you're not playing with other people. But through sharing the content, through creating this content and sharing it, you can still be able to interact and get to know other people. So, which I think is a very useful feature. Then you have this triangle here, which represents the connection. So again, learning these things and making, working on these hobbies can allow you to get to know other people and to build possibly relationships with other people. And that can be a very useful side result of the kind of hobbies that you have decided to implement into your life. Then we have this triangle here, which represents the 4 bodies. So keeping in touch with the theme of the channel. I don't want all of my hobbies to focus on the same thing. I want them to work on different areas of my life. So something that works on the physical side of my life, something on the emotional side, something on the mental side, and something on the spiritual side of my life. To make sure that my ensemble of hobbies covers me as wide of a spectrum as possible, so that it helps me to improve the most in my life. And then finally, this triangle here, which represents fun. So I'm making sure that I am stimulated, I am motivated, and I'm having fun while I am following through with these hobbies. If it becomes just, something that is not fun but that I have to do, it's just like a second job. I want my hobbies to be fun. I want the fun to be a fundamental component of the way I live these hobbies. As soon as I created and arranged this composition on the sheet, I noticed two visions came up and struck my attention. The first one is that this triangle, the triangle of fun, which I just explained to you, seemed to be separated from the other 6. All seemed sort of close to one another and as if they were parts of the same entity. The fun triangle seemed to be separate. And I think this is a very interesting observation. And it led me to the conclusion that, again, I have to make sure that I'm having fun, that whatever I do is stimulating. So even the learning of something new, acquiring some new skills, has to be subordinated to fun. If I'm not having fun, then I'm doing something wrong. I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out exactly what's going on to make sure that I'm having fun and that the process of learning is as smooth and as enjoyable as possible. The second thing I noticed was that it almost seems like here, between the triangle of fun and the triangle of meaning, it almost seemed like there was a void. There was something missing. There was another triangle or something that was missing. And the reason I said that is that I almost pictured in my head that I was fully pushing all of the triangles inside the circle. And they were creating one of the pie charts that are so, that we have learned so much about in middle school and high school. And what I noticed was that when I created this pie chart in my head, there was a slice that was missing. So I kept thinking for quite a while. Actually, I actually spent quite a bit of time thinking, what does it mean? What does that slide that is missing represent? What is missing? And I couldn't figure it out. After a while, I just stood up and I started stretching. I started walking up and down this room, and I realized something. I still don't know exactly what this slice represents. Maybe that meaning will come to me in the future. But what I realized is this: if I have all of my hobbies that are designed to teach me something, I run the risk of burning out. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that there is one hobby, just one, I don't need more than that. There is one hobby though where the only focus I have is having fun. I don't want to learn anything through that, just having fun. And the primary candidate for that is working out. Now, I'm not working out at the moment because the learning curve for setting up this project and everything that is related to it is quite steep. So it's taking me quite a lot of time to prepare the videos and prepare all of the other content that I'm making. So I don't have much time to do much else. But as soon as possible, in the very near future, I intend to start working out. And when I work out, I don't want to use it as an opportunity to learn something, to acquire some deep psychological or philosophical meanings. I just want to work out because I like working out, I like lifting weights, my physical health is going to improve, my mental health is going to improve. So, I just want to enjoy it, get all of the benefits that come from working out, and just have fun. So when it comes to my hobbies, I still reserve the right to move this thing around. It might be another hobby that, becomes the only fun hobby. But for the time being, I think the primary candidate will be working out. So I'm going to have, anyway, one hobby where the only focus is having fun, enjoying myself, having fun, and having a good time. So that is definitely something that I need to be mindful of in the planning stage when I'm planning everything out, to make sure that I have this hobby with more levity, this lighter hobby. After I created the composition, then I started working on the shapes. And as soon as I started working on the shapes, I finished working on a couple of triangles. And I stopped for a moment and I looked at that image on the sheet. And I noticed something. I noticed that on the one hand, these triangles looked amazing. I really liked how they looked on the sheet. But on the other hand, they looked almost too big. It's almost like they were sort of overpowering the rest of the composition. The rest of the composition, I couldn't see it anymore. And this created a bit of discomfort inside me. And I started to have thoughts like, you know what? It could make sense to just take another sheet and start all over again and make the composition again and start working on it again, maybe with, making them less, large, so that they don't stand out as much and everything else will fit better. As soon as I had this thought, I stopped for a second and I realized that that was actually my perfectionist voice talking. And I decided to do exactly what I said I would do on the previous episode, just to show you that the practical steps that I decide to introduce into my life, they are not just something that I tell you just to tell you, it's something that I'm actually implementing. So here I implemented it in my life, and I stopped for a second, I took a couple of deep breaths, then I looked again at the sheet and I analyzed more objectively the situation. And what I realized was that, on the one hand, sure, these triangles look quite big, but you have just worked on a couple of triangles. You haven't worked on the entire, composition. How about you reserve your judgment when the composition is completed? Maybe there everything will still be, too overpowering, and then you can restart all over again. Sure, no problem. But maybe it's just the partial sort of feedback that you get, but once you work on all of the other shapes, then it will balance itself out. And so what I realized was that, that was actually true, that I needed to stop thinking, drawing conclusions so prematurely. I needed to wait, and I needed to see the whole picture before I could draw some more definitive conclusions on that. And I kept thinking about it. And on one hand, something that helped me to get past this moment of this block, this moment of discomfort, was one of the lessons that we learned through Neurographica, which is that in Neurographica there are no mistakes. Everything can be fixed. So even if they look so large, there's a solution. Don't worry about that. On the other hand, I realized that throughout my entire life, and this is a theme that is starting to develop, something that I noticed specifically while I was thinking about this as I was drawing, that it is a theme throughout my life, that everything I do, and if you remember, I spoke about this in the previous episodes as well, everything I do when it comes to hobbies is always done very naturally, very instinctively. There is no thought behind it. I do an activity because I like it. I play chess because I like chess. I study chemistry because I like chemistry. There's no planning is behind it, I don't play chess because, okay, I play chess, maybe I can use this to learn this or to learn that, or I can use this activity in a certain way. No, I just would do that activity, then that was the end of it. But now that I'm trying to do something different, now I'm trying to put some thought, I'm trying to plan ahead and use these hobbies in a more complete way. Since that is a new approach to me, since that is something that I have never done before, then of course that is going to create problems. That is a big shift from my previous habits that will require me sometimes to adjust to it. So I need to be mindful of this and give myself the time to adapt to this new sort of idea, to a new sort of way of using my habits. And so I did just that. I got back to drawing and I finished working on all of the shapes in the central circle and all the triangles. And when I looked at the final result, I was mesmerized. It looked amazing. It was incredible. And it was almost a shame for me to have to work more on it because it looked perfect as it was. And I thought about it for a little bit and I realized something that sometimes it is valid, it makes sense to draw conclusions right away because at times you might cut loss. It is better to cut losses than to, just give time to bring a project to completion when there's going to be no good outcome from it. Sometimes it's just better to stop right away. But most of the times it is better to, instead of reaching some premature conclusions and then stop right away, maybe it's better to wait to see the full picture and then you reach the conclusion. So here, before, when I was just watching at a little bit of that image, I was a bit worried and I would have stopped there. Instead, if I, when I just finished it and I looked at the final product, it looked amazing. So I need to make sure, because again, this is a very big shift for me. This is something that, I'm going from doing hobbies because I want to do hobbies to doing hobbies in a much more deliberate way. So this is a big mental shift for me. So I need to make sure that before I judge this different approach, that I see the whole image, I see the whole picture. not just snippets of it and then I draw conclusions that I will apply definitively to it. And finally, I kept working on it, I kept adding more lines. And while at a first glance, these lines almost looked like they created a bit of confusions in the composition, after a couple seconds, they started to look really good. They started to look fully integrated inside the shapes, and they were giving these shapes complexity, personality almost. And I wonder about what the meaning of that was for a little bit, and I reached a conclusion which I think is very interesting, which is the fact that theory and practice are two different things. So you can plan as much as you want in theory, but then when it comes time to putting this into practice, there's gonna be unforeseen circumstances. There are gonna be things that you haven't planned out for, and so how the plan looks in theory and how it actually unfolds in reality might change. So I need to be flexible enough to recognize that and to make sure that I don't get discouraged as soon as that there's some difference between my plan and what happens in my life. After all of these insights, I continue working on the drawing, and I noticed something that, sure, I was seeing what I was doing, but I couldn't fully focus my eyes on the sheet. It was almost as if I was working and I wasn't really seeing what I was doing. And so I stopped for a second and I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes and an image, a very weird image popped up into my mind. I'm not sure if you're aware of these viral videos that are going around at this as I'm recording the videos during these weeks, these days. The videos of this guy who shares this very outrageous morning routine, and in one of the things that he does that don't seem to make any sense, he has a bowl, he puts ice in it, he puts water in it, and then he puts his face inside it, which something that always makes me chuckle every time I come across one of these videos. It always gives me great fun because it seems so outrageous. But then I started thinking a little bit more about it, and what I realized is that maybe, I'm not sure about him, maybe he is just trying to get as much money as possible while doing some outrageous stuff, who knows. But maybe for some other people that is a valid activity. Maybe some of them saw that video and they were like, that sounds interesting, let me try it. They try it and they get some benefit out of it. Maybe they feel more, they feel better, they feel sharper mentally. Maybe they feel more refreshed. And maybe their day is better because of that, directly because of that. And if that is the case, who am I or who is everyone else to judge, right? So, and at the same time, I reached a conclusion which is very interesting. At the end of the day, we're all different, right? And that is a great thing. I think all of the differences between different people should be celebrated. And so the way everyone goes about their business, about their activities, about their hobbies can be different. So on the one hand, if something works for you, it works for you, great. But on the other hand, if something works for me, it works for me. And who cares what someone else thinks, right? So let's just say that I play video games and I use video games in a way that allows me to learn new things. Who cares if someone else comes to me and is like, listen, I don't know why you play video games. You're not 10 anymore. You should stop playing video games and should do something else. But if I'm playing video games and they're bringing me benefits, why should I stop? It doesn't make any sense. So I should just, stop caring about what that person is saying because they work for me, good. They work for me, I can continue doing that. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that I should, be totally nonchalant about other people's comments, because sometimes people might have some constructive criticism, they might have some constructive feedback for me that allows me to improve myself and the way I use these hobbies to improve myself. However, on the other hand, I have to be able to cut out any just random comments that are doing nothing but just trying to take me down, because at the end of the day, if something is working for me, it is working for me. I need to give in the time. I need to give all of these hobbies the time to bring the success or not, it depends, but I still need to give them time to bring these plans to practice. But if they work for me, they work for me. Who cares? After this, I started with my favorite step of Neurographica, which is coloring. And I added all of these colors, and at the beginning I did not have this green. And I finished coloring, I looked at this drawing, it was like, green is missing. I need some green. And so I added some green at the top and at the bottom. And it almost looks like it is the base of all of the composition. The composition is on top of that base, and the base is what keeps this composition afloat. So that was a very interesting vision that I had. And I tried to think what that meant exactly. And I realized that what does this green represent for me? Because if I felt so strongly the lack of green as something negative, what does green mean for me within the context of this drawing? Why do I need that green so much? And I realized that green in this case means enthusiasm. It means the push to do, and to the motivation, then the stimulus, and the all of the desire that I have to do these activities. And so I need to make sure that it is always at the forefront of my attention. So if I get to the point where one of these hobbies is not fun for me anymore, then I need to go back to the drawing board and decide what changes I want to implement. So what do I want to do? Do I want to change hobby altogether? Do I want to change a detail? Do I want to maybe start learning something else? It depends. But I need to be mindful of that, and I need to always make sure that these hobbies are still fun and enjoyable to me. That is the most important thing. Otherwise, all of this plan might just crumble. After I finish coloring, I continue working on this drawing, and I decided I wanted to make the border of the central circle, if you remember the central circle represents me, to make it thicker. And I realized something, looking at this drawing, it almost looks like the border of the circle is cutting the triangles in two. And so the external part is not visible anymore, does not stand out to me anymore. All I can see is the central circle with all of the smaller triangles inside. And I like that image. There was an image that caused a very positive reaction on me. And I started thinking, okay, why? What does that represent exactly? And I realized that this represents me in the future. So let's just take me now. Me now, I'm just the purple circle. I'm just this purple circle here. When I through my hobbies and through the planning that I'm about to do for my hobbies, when I add all of these triangles, which are all characteristics that I want to get myself, basically these triangles go inside and they force the circle to expand, because these triangles are coming in. And then at a certain point, in time, the border of the circle cuts the triangles off, and so what is left is the circle me with these additional triangles inside. So it's me, but better. It's me with more characteristics. It's me with more skills. It's me with more positive features, which is definitely something that I want to achieve. It's definitely something that is a positive image for me. So in particular, I noticed that the triangle of meaning here is very visible. So, all of the in a while, this is me in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know exactly, but the meaning, so the skills, the capacities that I have acquired through my hobbies will be there and will be will occupy an important role in myself in the future. Connections. So, even when I stop enjoying certain hobbies, the connections that I have created will still be there. I will still have the friends and all of the other people that I know even when I'm going to stop playing that game or performing that activity. The four bodies, so the idea that I'm going to work on myself at different levels, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of the benefits and improvement that I have obtained through working on these levels is still going to stick with me. And finally, the fun. So all of the good times that I've had will still remain. I'm going to have a lot of positive memories through me doing these hobbies. Even when I'm going to stop with these hobbies, 10 years from now, I'm not going to remember exactly me doing something, but I'm still going to have some positive memories. So there is definitely something that will stay with me and will make me better. Interestingly, what I notice is that the triangle of planning here is almost non-visible. It's almost not visible anymore. And I was thinking, why did it catch my attention? And what I realized is that, very interestingly, is that at the end of the day, planning is something that is important at the beginning. Right now, planning is very important because I need to bring a plan to fruition in the most efficient possible way. And so, planning is important. In the future, once I stop doing these hobbies, who cares what the details of the planning were? I have the results. So planning is not as important in the future anymore. So something that is definitely, a welcome image and a confirmation that the idea that I had is sound and that will definitely bring me benefits. Now, I finished the drawing and I set it aside for a moment. I was just taking a moment to relax and to take a little break. And I was taking some deep breaths, I was drinking some water, and I looked at the drawing, and what I noticed was that from that perspective, I could see some of the triangles outside. They were not cut off from the central parts anymore. And I was looking at them, and some of them were very large. And I was thinking, wait a second, am I comfortable with leaving so much potential growth outside? Am I okay with leaving all of that potential growth there and not taking benefit of it? And I thought for a while, and then I realized something. This is not the end of my journey. This is not the end of my path. This is just a snapshot of me at a certain point in time. Who says that these triangles cannot go in further? Maybe this is now I need to change a hobby and these triangles will go further in. Or maybe I need to change something and these triangles will go further in. Or maybe I don't need to change anything. I just need to get some more time to let these triangles go further in. But, if I continue along with this plan, this is a good plan and this is a plan that will serve me very well. But I just need to continue moving along with this plan and my circle will continue getting bigger and bigger and I will become richer and richer in terms of experiences and skills if I continue going along this path. And these triangles will keep going in. So I'm going to keep acquiring more and more skills and more experiences and more positive qualities as a result of the plan that I just have set, on the sheet and I will set in motions in the future. And now that the drawing is finished, what are the main takeaways? What are the main points that I can take home from the insights that I've obtained that I've just exposed to you? I think there are three main takeaways from this drawing. The first one is that there is nothing wrong with having hobbies that allow you to just vent or relax or have fun. But for me, I want to do something different. With the exception of one hobby, where I just want to have some fun and relax, as I've explained before, I want my hobbies to also teach me something. Either allow me to learn a new skill or to get better at the skill that I already possess. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. I also need to stop caring about what other people think about what I do. Who cares if they don't like what the hobbies I have? Who cares if they don't approve of the hobbies I have? Who cares if they think that if they think it's stupid or childish or whatever? If they are hobbies that bring me some positive results, whatever. I'll keep pushing forward with them and I'll be happy. The second conclusion I can draw is that planning is essential. It is an essential part of all of this process. So I need to make sure I know exactly what skills I want to learn or get better at. I need to know exactly what kind of hobbies I want to pursue, And then I need to know exactly how I can learn the skills through those hobbies. So all of this comes through in the planning phase, and I need to make sure my planning phase is on point to set myself up for success, for my future. And the third and final conclusion I can draw is that it takes time. I cannot expect to see results right away. I need to give myself the time to plan everything out appropriately. I need to give myself the time to put my plan into practice. And I need time, to give myself time to let the results from the plan that I set forth into practice come to fruition. So I need to be patient and I need to wait for the result to come. This is a good plan. This is a good plan. This is a great plan. But I need to give him the time to succeed. And what about the practice? What are the practical steps that I want to implement in my life as a result of me making this drawing? Whenever we use one of these algorithms where we are dealing with planning for the future, there's going to be more emphasis that's going to be placed on the practical steps that we will introduce in our life for the future. And so this is no exception. Here the same thing happens. So the first thing I want to do is to make a list. As you may have noticed, I don't mind lists. So I'm going to make a list for each one of the four bodies, for each one of the four areas of our life where we can work on: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. I'm going to make a list. This is an open list, so at any point in time I can add or remove some of the entries. So I'm going to make a list for each one of these four areas of all of the hobbies that I would not mind pursuing, that I would be interested in pursuing. And then I'm going to pick one from each of the four columns, and I will introduce that into my life. Now, for one of these hobbies, which most likely is going to be related to working out, as I explained before, the focus is just going to be on having fun, on enjoying myself, and on having a good time. For the others, I'm going to figure out what characteristics, what skills I want to acquire or I want to improve in myself, and I'm going to associate them to the related hobbies, so that I can have a more mindful practice of such hobbies. If possible, I'm also going to try and have an overlap. So for example, having one hobby that covers more than one area. For example, let's just say that I look at the list and I'm like, okay, I'm going to introduce chess as one of my hobbies, but it's going to cover both the emotional and the mental aspect of my life. So the mental aspect is related to improving my pattern recognition, improving my logical reasoning, improving my memory, and all of those good qualities. The emotional aspect would be related to improving my determination, improving my attitude, and improving my motivation. So those are all positive qualities that I want to introduce in my life. The same hobby will cover two aspects, or even three or four, whatever. So I have a lower number of hobbies overall, and that will allow me to dedicate more time to them. So it's definitely a solution that might work best for me. And so I'm going to have a list of the hobbies, the characteristics I want to introduce into my life, and then I'm going to practice these hobbies with the idea of building those skills up. And then I need to keep everything monitored. So I need to give myself some very concrete objectives in terms of the skills. So at what level of skill I want to be, at to be competent. So for example, let's just say that in terms of determination, I want to get to this level. This is an arbitrary level, okay, just to illustrate the point. When I get there, then I need to reevaluate. I need to sit down and be like, okay, I have reached the level that I wanted in terms of determination. What do I do now? I could either A, continue, so set an even higher target for myself and so build even more determination, or I can be satisfied with what I have and then change and then start learning something new. So I need to keep everything monitored in order to make sure that my practice is mindful but directed, and that I am really working towards achieving the goals that I set for myself. And then in order to keep everything relatively fresh and relatively, fun and enjoyable, what I will do is I will every once in a while, every 3-6 months, every year, I don't know, I'm gonna change something. It could be changing a hobby with the same exact goals, with the same exact skills that I want to acquire, but changing the hobby, or I could change one of the skills that I'm learning. I'm gonna pause one momentarily, set one aside, and introduce a new one, or I might change the way I live out a certain hobby. Maybe the hobby is the same, I just do things differently. And this to help make everything, fresh and new and enjoyable still. I have to make sure not to change too often because I still want to make sure that my practice is regular, consistent, and that I have a very easy way to check my progress when it comes to these skills. But changing every once in a while won't hurt and definitely will help me to maintain my motivation and my drive to, pursue these hobbies. Now, this was my solution to this problem. What about you? If you have the same problem, what is the right solution for you? Or else, what if you have a different problem? How can you find the best solution for you? Not just a random solution that might work better for some and worse for others. No, the ideal solution for you. This is when Neurographica comes in. Neurographic is a technique that allows you to work on two main areas. One is working on events of your past that are negatively impacting you now. The other one is planning for your future. So you have two different areas where Neurographica can definitely help you out. Neurographica is a very flexible technique because you can work on it whenever you want, morning, afternoon, evening, night, it doesn't matter. You can work on whatever topic you want, and it gives you the best solution for you, not just a random, stock solution, the best solution for you at that specific point in time. So I think that is a very versatile technique that can be very useful for many people. I am a Neurographica certified instructor, specialist, and supervisor, and I offer courses where you can learn how to apply this technique to your life to change yourself for the better. If you have never studied Neurographica before, you can join our introductory course, which we call the Basic User Course of Neurographica, where you are going to learn the basic principles of this technique, its theoretical foundation, and you are going to learn how to draw some algorithms that will allow you to make some meaningful and important changes to your life. Now, algorithms like this one are more advanced that are not included in a basic user course because they require more advanced concepts that you need to learn afterwards, after we have mastered the basics. But the basic user course is still a very, very important course that is your first step, your first introduction to Neurographica, your first step into the world of Neurographica, and it is a course that I highly suggest for every single one of you to undertake because it is going to change your life for the better. If you have any question, you have anything you want to know from me, you can contact me through my social media profiles or through my email address. I'm going to leave everything in the description down below. With this being said, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for sticking with me till the end of the video. And I'll see you in the next video. Ad Maiora. Oh, you're still here. I'm very happy to see that. If you want, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, or you can open this playlist that contain all of the episodes of this series, or you can watch this video. I'm sure you're gonna like that. The choice is yours. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.